topic that we just cannot escape. Everyone is talking about it, and that is AI. Unfortunately, we've got one of the big brains on our side, right? We got one of the good guys on our side, and that is TJ Miller. Okay, so your next speaker is TJ Miller, and he is the author of the Prism package, and he's going to come out here and he's going to explain to you this routing layer for AI models and how we can incorporate AI into our applications to make them more powerful. Please give it up for TJ Miller.
Thanks, man. Yo, all right. I am so excited to share Prism with y'all today. I want to show you that integrating with AI doesn't have to be scary or complex. I've got so much to yap at y'all about. We can dive straight into it. So we've got this OpenAI integration we've made with Nuno's amazing OpenAI package. But you know what just happened? Anthropic released a new super powerful model. So we've got to leverage that, right? Well, now we're maintaining multiple integrations, different APIs, different affordances, different headaches. It's a mess. So what if I told you you could change providers by changing just a single line of code? And what if it could feel like working with Eloquent for AI? Well, I want to introduce you all to Prism. And changing providers is really just that easy. So, thank you. My name's TJ Miller. I work with the incredible team at Geocodio, and I'm the creator of Prism. So what is Prism, right? Well, it's one API for most major providers like OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, xAI, Ollama. We support a ton of different providers. Now, while we have a unified API for doing this, we also have affordances for provider-specific features, like if you wanted to leverage Gemini's search grounding or Anthropic's prompt caching, we absolutely have you covered. And something that I'm very proud of, and I've put a lot of sweat into, is it feels very Laravel native. It feels like working with Eloquent for AI. So we're just going to scratch the surface of what Prism can do here today, but I think we can get started with text generation. And to talk about text generation, I think we could build a blog post generator that adapts to the writing style of a specific author. So this is how we can do that with Prism. So let's break this request down. We tell Prism we want to work with text, then we give it our provider and model, and next we give it a prompt. And you'll notice here that we're using Blade templates as our prompt layer. And it's a super powerful way to create reusable data-driven prompts, and it also helps keep our code super clean. So here we pass in our topic and our posts, and then we tell Prism that we want a text response back. And from our rich response object, we can easily grab the generated text with the text property. So here's our prompt. Now imagine trying to do this with like here docs or concatenated strings. It's an absolute eyesore and a mess to reason with. So the power of Blade templates can really back us up here. So let's break this prompt down. We give it a task, we give it our topic, we give it some instructions around using the sample posts, and then we can easily provide those sample posts in a way that's easy for the language model to digest. So let's put this into use. We can resolve our author, and I'm a huge fan of the invocable action pattern, so we'll go ahead and use that here. And then we can easily persist that post to the database. So moving on from text generation, I think we can step it up a notch. I think we can talk about streaming text generation. And for this, I think we could chat a podcast transcript. And so Chris Gamir and I host the Slightly Caffeinated podcast, and we'll go ahead and just use an episode from that. And we'll use Prism for all of this. So we need a transcript. So we can tell Prism we want to work with audio, give it our provider and model. Next, we tell it where the file is, and then we tell Prism we want a text response back. Let's put that transcript to use. We'll tell Prism we want to work with text, give it our provider and model, give it a system prompt with our transcript as context, but instead of a prompt, we're going to give it an array of messages because we're working inside of a chat context here. Next, we'll give it some restrictions on its maximum output size. And then we'll tell Prism that we want a streamed response instead of the text response. And this is actually a generator. So let's put this to use. Well, Laravel makes this incredibly easy with its various streaming response types. So here we'll use the event stream response type. We'll resolve our chat action. And then we'll iterate through our response because remember, it's a generator. And our generator returns chunks of data, and our chunks contain everything from text information to usage and metadata, as well as tool information. So let's take a look at what this looks like. We start up a chat, and you can see that we can use the tool information to create dedicated UI for our tool invocations. And then, of course, we have our streaming text output. It's super easy to build powerful chat UIs with Prism. So let's leave text generation behind entirely. Talk about structured output. So what if instead of text, I told you you could return a predefined associative array of data? It's an incredibly powerful technique for being able to work with your output of the AI. So let's take our podcast episode and let's extract some data from it. But in order to illustrate the power of structured output, let's first do this with text. So we'll break this request down. We'll tell Prism we want to work with text. We'll give it our provider and model. Our prompt with our transcript is context. Finally telling Prism we want a text response back. So looking at our prompt here, we're going to ask the model to extract a summary, follow-up items for future episodes, items that we'd like to link to in the show notes. And so the next series of slides, I've broken the output down into multiple slides to make it easy to digest, but think of it as just one big markdown document. So we get a summary, fantastic. We get our follow-up items, great. We get show links, man, this is like exactly what we are looking for. But let's run it again. We get our summary, totally different format. Follow-up items, same thing, totally different format. And it didn't even include the show links this time. But further, how am I supposed to break up these different sections and persist them to the database in separate columns? I don't want to sit around and have to write some gnarly regex or have Claude do it for me. It's just too much. So let's take our text request and turn it into structured output. Let's break down what changed. We tell Prism we want to work with structured data. Give it our provider and model, our prompt with our transcript as context. But something new, we're going to provide a schema. And then we're going to tell Prism we want a structured response. And from our rich response object, we can easily access that array through the structured property. So let's talk about schemas a little bit. When we talk with language models and we want an object back, we need to send a subset of the JSON schema spec. But we make this incredibly easy to build with our various schema objects. So let's break down our podcast here. We have our summary, we have an array of follow-up items, and we have an array of our show links. But most importantly, we tell Prism what of those properties are required. So no more missing show links anymore. Let's take a look at that output. So instead of this big blob of text, now we have this neat, nice, and tidy associative array that we can make a ton of different programming decisions with. So putting that to use, we have our structured output call, and now we can easily update that podcast and create columns for each of those different sections of our extracted data. Super powerful and really easy to work with. So let's talk tools. Right? I think it'd be fun to talk about building a coding agent with Laravel 0. Something like Claude Code or Open Code. I think we're all getting pretty familiar with this stuff. So this is one way to define tools in Prism using our class-based syntax. We give the tool a name. We tell the model what that tool is for and when to use it. And now we start defining our parameters for our tool call here. So for our edit file tool, we'll take in a path, a search string, and then a replacement string. Finally, we'll tell Prism what piece of functionality to use when we're ready to invoke that tool. But we can also use the tool facade and closures to define our tools. So a few different ways in doing this depending on how you want to work with it. So let's start with our coding agent. We'll add our tools. But an important piece to this is we need to agentify this request. And by that, I mean what Prism's going to do is automatically take that tool result and send it back to the language model to use as context. And so we can give it restrictions around how many iterations we want it to make. Let's add the rest of our tools and round out our agent. But I think something interesting we could do is maybe I want to take a GitHub link and give that to the model and say, hey, go work this issue for me. Well, with our package relay, we make it incredibly easy to add any MCP toolset to your Prism agents. Let's see this in action. We give it a request. We see that it's going off and invoking tools, giving us some feedback, and we're sending those tool results back to the model so it can make decisions, call more tools, and act on our behalf for us. So Prism Server. Prism Server was born out of something I just wanted to scratch my own itch on. What if you could turn your Prism models straight into APIs using an OpenAI compatible endpoint that'll work with any OpenAI SDK or compatible chat UI? So this is something that I want to spend a little bit more time on in the future, but we make it really easy to register these agents. We give the agent a name, and then we define our piece of functionality that goes along with that. Here we see Open Web UI. It's one of my favorite chat UIs. It makes it really easy to take the model selection, and you can see all of your registered agents right there. This works with tools. Structured output doesn't really make sense here, but you can have fully fledged agents in here being able to ready to chat with. So multimodal inputs. Sometimes we want to send images, documents, or various types of media to the models as context. So we can easily do that. Here we're going to create some GitHub issues from a screenshot. I like to whiteboard a lot, or I like to sketch on paper. We snap a picture of it, upload it, and now we can create some GitHub issues from it. Here we grab an image from a path, and we can easily attach it to our prompt. If we're working in a chat context, we can easily attach this media to the messages. Well, maybe we want to do some document analysis or entity extraction, which is pretty common with a document. Here we're using documents from a storage path, and we're using our documents disk. But you can use any disk that you define inside of your Laravel application, making it incredibly easy to attach media to your requests from anywhere. So this is a fun one, image generation. I probably don't share enough of it, but I do a ton of image generation just for fun. And I want to share with you my favorite image generation workflow. I call it like a prompt enhancing workflow. So we're going to take this simple image prompt, a cyberpunk and vaporwave inspired downtown scene with the text Laravel and Prism prominently displayed. But I want to enhance this prompt. I want very detailed and rich images. So let's go ahead and enhance that prompt. We'll tell Prism that we want to work with text. We'll give it our provider and model. Then we'll give it our prompt with our image description. Finally, telling Prism that we want a text response back. So this just kind of showcases the power of being able to use blade templates in your prompt layer. We've created a persona prompt called Vivian, and we can easily include that in any other prompts that we want to use. Then we provide our image description as context here. So this is Vivian's prompt. It looks pretty wild. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I've studied and reverse engineered a lot of the effectiveness of collaborative dynamics prompts. And I think they're at the forefront of some really interesting prompt engineering stuff. So I created this prompt to transform sparse image descriptions into rich narratives. So remember how we started with just a sentence? Well, now we have paragraphs. Imagine the level of detail in these images that will get generated now. So for the fun part, let's generate these images. We'll tell Prism we want to work with images, give it our provider, our model. Next, we'll provide some options around image generation, give it our enhanced prompt. And now images take a while to generate, so we need to tell our client to allow for that. So we'll just give it a really high timeout. Next, we'll generate the images. Let's take a look. So I think this image is pretty cool. Not very detailed. It did prominently display Laravel and Prism, but the text is just kind of floating out in the middle of nowhere. So this was using our simple prompt. This image was generated using our enhanced prompt. I love the level of detail here. And I love how it integrated the text into the images. I think there's just something so much more rich and vibrant about them now that we've added all this additional enhancement to it. I got carried away, couldn't help myself, so we have a few images here. So audio. Well, we support speech to text, text to speech. Now, we've already seen speech to text when we generated our transcript earlier. So let's talk about text to speech. This is a super fun one to play with, and I definitely encourage you to play around with it. I'm actively working on an 11 Labs integration for this, so we'll have a lot of fun pretty soon here. So we'll tell Prism we want to work with audio. We'll give it our provider, our model, our input, like what we want it to say, select a voice, and then we want an audio response back. So pretty easy to work with audio. Testing, this is a fun one. Now, we're not animals, right? We all test our applications. Makes sense that we want to test Prism as well. Well, we take some inspiration from Laravel here and their HTTP client. We make it incredibly easy to build up these fake responses from the AI. We register them with Prism, and then we can make our Prism calls. Then we can start asserting any sort of data from that response, kind of making sure that our Prism integration is hooked up, configured, and working correctly. But not only that, we have a bunch of other options too. We can assert a prompt. In agentic scenarios, we can assert how many iterations or requests that it made. Or we can assert any miscellaneous prompt data or any of the request data that we made. So we scratched the surface. We've got a little bit familiar with the syntax and kind of the different things that it can do. But I kind of want to leave you with this. Why Prism? Well, it's going to feel right at home in your Laravel apps. It feels very Laravel native. We're provider agnostic. Don't get locked into a single AI service, especially when they're always coming out with new, more powerful models. Or honestly, there's different models that perform better with different tasks. So we want to be able to be flexible with that. And not only is it just a single line of code to change, but if you're leveraging more advanced features, we have a bunch of affordances for that as well. We're real world ready. There's several rather large applications that are already using this in production. We're test friendly. And we're community driven and under really pretty active development. Now, talking about being community driven, I want to call out two individuals, Chris and Pushback. They've been my right-hand people with brainstorming, talking about new features. They're in the issues, they're in the pull requests, and they're contributing a ton to Prism. So I wanted to make sure I gave them a special thanks. So getting started with Prism is incredibly easy. All you need is an API key and Prism. So before I leave off here, a couple things. 1.0 is on its way. It's going to land in the next few weeks. We're honestly really pretty stable, and the only changes are going to be coming to streaming output. So definitely ready to use. And if you want to keep in touch with it, go to my website, sign up for the newsletter. I'll let you know as soon as it drops or any other changes happen. So thank you so much for letting me yap at you about Prism. Yeah.
All right. Hey, nicely done. Piece of art. That was great. Here's your full jacket. I have to put it on right now. Thank you. Okay, so I have two questions for you. What have you seen? What are some common use cases you have seen from your users or Geocodio or in your side projects of people bringing AI with Prism into their applications? Or what should people be thinking about as they're trying to implement this?
I mean, all sorts of stuff. Like one of my favorite use cases right now is there's a legal company that's using Prism to do all sorts of contract analysis and then being able to pass that off to a human, like a lawyer, to like finish that process. So they were able to actually offer a whole new product stream built on top of Prism doing AI contracts.
See, and this is what I feel like you're a reasonableist, and a lot of AI people aren't reasonableists. This is great because you're allowing the computer to do more work, but still keeping the human in the loop.
Human in the loop is so vital with AI. Like, you've really kind of got to be skeptical of it a little bit still, but human in the loop, very important.
And how are you, as the developer of this library, how are you keeping up with the breakneck pace of changes in the AI ecosystem? Because that overwhelms me, and I imagine you have to do that.
It's very overwhelming. But the thing is, my ADHD latched onto this, and it's just become this like hyper obsession, and I can't let go of it. So I'm subscribed to like a ton of AI newsletters, and I use AI to parse through those, and I give it here's the things I'm interested in, and tell me what's relevant. So
incredible. I'm glad we have you on our team. Y'all give it up for TJ. Thank you.